Hello and Happy New Year, Whiskey Taste Buds. Welcome to the Blue Collar and Scholar Whiskey Club 2021 Whiskey Awards. That's right, decided to do something a little bit different this year, and I sent out a list of all the whiskeys that the Whiskey Club tasted throughout the year, and asked everybody for their input, and I sort of did a vote or a tally and came up with top whiskeys for the club, so they're the Whiskey Club's favorite whiskeys. Again, I wanted to wish everybody a Happy New Year, and I wanted to thank everybody for participating in all the tastings we did this year. Super proud that we did pretty much almost every month. We missed June and September were the only 2 months that we didn't do a tasting. And so pretty proud of that, and it's been pretty exciting. There's been some amazing whiskeys, and we've had a lot of fun, even though we couldn't meet in person. We still did it online, and looks like we'll probably continue to do that in the new year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically, first of all, tell you the results and go over the club's top whiskeys, and then I'm going to go over and tell you, and then I'm going to tell you guys what my top 3 were. And then I'm going to have some honorable mentions. And then I'm going to sort of tell you guys about what my top 3 most memorable whiskey moments were for 2021. Okay? So yeah, let's get to it. First of all, I want to raise a dram. Again, wish you guys a Happy New Year. It's New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve. No, it's New Year's Eve. And after this, I'm probably just going to curl up with a book. We just got home from visiting family over in Lund, and shoveled the driveway because there was another 6 inches of snow in the driveway. And yeah, just get the house warmed up, and now I'm looking forward to just grabbing a dram and curling up with one of my new books and doing some reading, and just sort of waiting until Brandy gets home from work, and then kind of quietly celebrating the new year with her. No big parties for us this year. Anyway, on with the show. So, the top whiskeys of 2021 for the Blue Collar and Scholar Whiskey Club. Originally, I was going to do just top 3, but when I saw the whiskeys and what people had said, I decided to mention the top 5 or so whiskeys. So tied for 5th is the Talent Distillery Cask number 580 Bruichladdich Port Cask. We tried this whiskey earlier in the year, and I remember being absolutely blown away by it. It was so unique. It really wanted me to made me want to try. Sorry, a little bit of troth mumble there. It made me want to try all the other Bruichladdich expressions that Talent Distillery put out. I think they put out about 5 or 6 of them. I haven't had a chance to yet, but I've noticed that there's still some available at like the Strath and maybe even Legacy in Vancouver. There's like a sherry cask and a couple others. Definitely recommend giving them a shot, and keep an eye on that distillery. It's a new distillery opening up. I'm not sure when, somewhere in Vancouver, and he's the guy who sort of started the distillery up. I can't remember his name at the moment, but grew up on Islay, and that sort of whiskey is in his blood, and it's pretty exciting to see what comes out of that distillery in the future. So as I mentioned, that was tied for 5th. The other 5th place whiskey for the club's favorite whiskeys is Talisker Port Ree. So yeah, another port cask finished whiskey. So yeah, Talisker Port Ree we tried earlier in the year. It was a real special whiskey I wanted to share with the club. Unfortunately, you still can't get it in British Columbia, but it can be acquired if you have the means to acquire whiskey from Alberta, and I highly recommend it. It's one of mine, and probably I know my mom and also the scholars' favorite Taliskers, and it's just an amazing port finish whiskey. If you, like I said, if you haven't tried it, or if you guys remember it, it was spectacular, and it got votes, even though it was way earlier in the year. 4th place, I've actually got the the whiskey here to show you. Fourth place was day 12 of the 12 Drams of Christmas this year, the Glenmorangie 1991 Grand Vintage. And wow, what a spectacular special whiskey this was. Finished in burgundy casks mixed with a few others. Sorry. Release it from its case. There's the bottle there. There's a little bit of heel left there. I might pour myself a dram of this to toast in the new year, I think. So yeah, I was really happy to be able to share this whiskey with everybody that was taking part in the 12 Drams of Christmas. It's one of their Bond House #1 releases, and if you ever get a chance, I think it retails for about $1,000. But if you ever get a chance to try it, or any of the Grand Vintage Glenmorangies, I highly recommend it. It was another highlight of the year for sure. Sorry, I got everything on the list here because I just don't want to miss anything. So that was fourth. Number 3, I don't have the bottle or box anymore. But it was another super special whiskey. Back in the summer, I did a Blue Collar's private cask, or a private collection tasting. And this was the favorite and by far the most exquisite whiskey we had in that tasting. And that was Old Putney 1983. For those of you who remember the story behind this whiskey, for me, it's a special whiskey to me because I was able to taste it at one of the whiskey festivals in Victoria, which unfortunately sounds like it's been canceled again for 2022. And hopefully we can get through this pandemic and into an endemic and get back to going to those whiskey festivals, because there's so many special experiences you can have at those festivals. And I really hope that a lot of them are able to come back when all this is over with. And it will be over with someday. I know sometimes it feels like it won't be, but I got good feelings about 2022 and years to come. It's just gonna get better and better. So anyway, yeah, number 3, Old Putney 1983. Another special moment for that whiskey for me was the heel, which I didn't have a lot of, but the heel of that whiskey I was able to take down to my dad and visit him in Lake Cowichan on his birthday, and with my brother, and we were able to get a couple drams out of the heel and toast to him on his birthday, and he was tickled pink because he had never had any whiskey that expensive or that old. And so it was sort of a highlight, and it was really fun to be able to share that with him. And that's what whiskey's all about, is sharing. In case anybody who doesn't know me very well, that's what I do. I do sit and drink whiskey by myself sometimes, but it's way better when you share it with people, and that's kind of why I started the club in the first place. So anyway, that was number 3. Number 2, runner-up. And like, this is all incredible how 3rd and 4th places, like, these whiskeys are just absolutely amazing whiskeys. All of these whiskeys are amazing whiskeys, so it just shows you what kind of a great year we've had at the club here. 2nd place was day number 1 on the 12 Drams of Christmas. And I do believe I have the empty bottle here still. It is the That Boutique Whiskey Company Batch 17 Springbank 19-year-old. What a special whiskey that was. Pretty much almost stole the show for the 12 Drams of Christmas. Like, it's one of those whiskeys that just stands out in your mind. No matter how many exquisite whiskeys you taste in the calendar, your mind just keeps going back to that day one. And I really hope and look forward to being able to try and acquire some more Springbank whiskeys for the club in the future, because it was truly special. And that leaves us to the top whiskey for the club for 2021. and that was that Tiki Whiskey Company single malt Scotch whiskey Highland number 1 42-year-old. And that's right, that is a 42-year-old Klein. Well, they don't actually say, but I did a little research, and according to rumors, and it actually makes sense because of the style of whiskey it was and what we experienced in the glass, is a Clamish, 42-year-old Clamish. And again, for anybody that says when you pay a lot of money for old whiskeys, you're just paying for the rarity of it, and it's not any better than a cheaper, younger whiskey, I beg to differ. I think this one is absolutely amazing, and probably that and a couple other whiskeys we had this year have sort of made their way up into my all-time favorite lists. So, and I think it has for a few other members as well. So I was honored to be able to share that whiskey with you guys, even though it wasn't a full ounce. And look forward to maybe finding some more expressions from that distillery for the club as well. So there you have it. There's the club's top whiskeys of 2021. And what a list that was. And it's crazy when you think about, or you go back to the list I sent out to everybody, and all the whiskeys that didn't make that list that are just incredible whiskeys as well. So just goes to show you, we really kind of knocked it out of the park this year, I think, in my opinion. All right, Blue Collar's top 3. Yeah, pretty close to the top 3 for the club, but in a slightly different order. My top whiskey, well, let's start with the number 3. So my number 3 whiskey for 2021 is the Clamish 42-year-old. Again, it was a spectacular whiskey, and it was a spectacular experience. But for me, there was just a couple other whiskeys that just sort of, one of them I'm sort of partial to, maybe a little biased, and the other one just stood out for me so much that I couldn't ignore that it was my favorite. So number 2 was Old Putney 1983, and that's the one that's sort of dear to my heart, and I had some really good moments with it this year, and so that's why it made my top 3 list. And my number 1 whiskey for 2021 was that Boutique Whiskey Company Springbank 19-year-old. And again, I wasn't able to sample the whiskeys when I was putting the kits together because there was so little of it. It was only 500 ml bottle, and I wanted to make sure everybody got their 3/4 ounce pour. So it was a bit of a gamble, and I don't think I would have put it on day 12, but it could have very easily been the last dram of the calendar. And yeah, like, it's forever ingrained in my brain how special that whiskey was. And yeah, so that's my top 3. So like I said, pretty similar to the club's favorites, but in slightly different order. Honorable mentions. So there was a couple of whiskeys in the list that I just felt like I really had to mention. And we'll start with the best cask finished whiskey. So that means it's a whiskey that's gone through its maturation in either ex-bourbon or sherry, but then for a time before they vat it and bottle it, they will finish it in a different cask. So for me, for the club whiskeys that we had in 2021, the best cask finished whiskey is the Talisker Port Brie. I've actually got a couple bottles on order right now because I want to revisit it again, and I might even actually put it in another tasting. It's that good. Best Irish whiskey. So back in March, we did an Irish whiskey tasting, and I called it a premium tasting because we had some pretty expensive Irish whiskeys. And I'm going to award the best Irish whiskey to Redbreast 21. Now that was and always is a spectacular whiskey if you get a chance to try it. There was some strong contenders for this award. The Atru Acuna which is a single malt style Irish whiskey, and then there's also the Middleton Barry Crockett Legacy, which was the most expensive whiskey we had that night. Was also very good, but the Redbreast 21 to me really stood out, and it was delicious. So it's, in my opinion, these are just my my opinions. It's not things that I asked the club to vote on. Maybe next year we'll send out a few more questions for people to answer and take votes on all of these. It might be kind of fun, but these are just sort of my honorable mentions. So, best budget dram. Also, from the Irish whiskey tasting that we did, was the Bushmills Black Bush Irish whiskey. And yeah, I mean, again, we even did a budget tasting earlier this year. And there was some great whiskeys there too. And that Black Bush, Bushmill by Bushmills, in my opinion, is for the price, you can't beat it. It's really good. So if you're looking for a cheap whiskey to ring in the new year, quickly run out and buy yourself a bottle of Bushmills Black Bush. By the way, in my dram tonight is another honorable mention, and I'll get to it shortly. This one here, the next one, is whiskey. First I was going to call it best entry-level whiskey. But then I was like, you know what, that's not really accurate. It's because in my opinion, this whiskey is not an entry-level whiskey. It's an amazing whiskey that even like really experienced whiskey drinkers really enjoy. So I changed the award title, and I called it a whiskey I'm most likely to introduce to a new person to whiskey. So we all have those people that are curious about what you're doing, and they're curious about whiskey, and they're like, you know, I tried like this Glenlivet one time and I hated it, or I tried this Lefroy one time and it was like an ashtray and it was gross. In my opinion, the whiskey is so diverse out there that there's got to be a good whiskey for everybody. So when I have a new person that comes and asks me about a whiskey or asks for a recommendation on, hey, I'm going to a friend's house, they're curious about whiskey, what whiskey would you recommend? This is a whiskey that we tried this year in a tasting that I would say is probably the most well-rounded whiskey and probably the best one to sort of recommend to someone who's curious about any type of whiskey, not necessarily a Speyside or an Islay whiskey. And this award for me, it goes to Le Jeg 10-year-old from the Tobermory distillery. Again, super well-rounded, balanced. It's peated but not too much. It's a beautiful whiskey, great price, and it's really gotten a good response whenever I've recommended it to somebody or I bought a bottle for somebody who's just sort of exploring whiskey for the first time. Two more honorable mentions. They weren't really, no real category, just ones I felt like I really had to talk about a little bit. And one of them was also from the 12 Drams of Christmas we did this year. I believe it was day 2. And this was the Glengrant 15-year-old batch strength from the BC Liquor Store Spirits release in November. Yeah, this one just blew me away to the point where like I wasn't expecting it. It was a bottle that I bought after I'd already gone and made my first purchases at the Spirits release. I had breakfast and went back, saw this, there was no lineup at the liquor store, so I went in to see what was left over, and I saw this Glengrant 15, and I was sort of put off by Glengrant a while back because somebody called it the 18-year-old a whiskey of the year, and it just didn't do anything for me. I wasn't really thrilled with it. I've always liked the Glengrant 12-year-old. But then I saw the 15-year-old, and I saw it said batch strength. And then I looked at the box, and it said 50% alcohol, 50% ABV. And I was like, wow, that's like... That's the kind of ABV that I'm looking for when I'm looking to try a whiskey. And the price was right, so I picked one up for the calendar, and it's amazing. And that's what I got in my glass tonight. So that's an honorable mention, in my opinion. And it's probably one I'll seek out, definitely for my own collection, and maybe even as a fairly regular drinker. Hopefully it's not one that's just disappears off the shelves and never seen again. My second honorable mention, before we get on to the next category, is the Lagavulin 11-year-old. It's the Offerman edition, which is the Guinness cask finish. I don't have a bottle or a box to show you, but I'm definitely going to be looking for another one. I love all Lagavulins, but this one really did just sort of stand out to me. I really enjoyed it. It gets mixed reviews when you're watching whiskey reviews and stuff like that, but in my opinion, the cask finish, the Guinness cask finish in this Lagavulin just created such a unique flavor profile. I really recommend people trying it, especially if you like Lagavulin. Normally, whiskeys that are attached to celebrities end up being flops, and they're not very good. But Offerman is an avid Lagavulin drinker. He's an avid whiskey guy. He's a geek just like us, and so I don't think him being a part of this whiskey was hurt it in any way whatsoever. In fact, if he had a hand in making this whiskey, then kudos to him. So that's my second honorable mention. And now we're going to talk a little bit about my top 3 most memorable whiskey moments of 2021. And then I'm going to sign off and go enjoy some more drams. So one of the most favorite moments for me for the whiskey moments for 2021 was being able to finally get back to Shelter Point Distillery with my good friend Leon Webb. And we went in and we visited our 3 casks. So Blue Collar and Scholar Whiskey Club has purchased 3 different casks from Shelter Point within the last year or 2. One of them is a Buffalo Trace ex-bourbon cask, and 2 of them are special Ardbeg casks. And I have some of the pictures and videos that I might share with you guys later. I wasn't able to get it edited in time to put together a decent video. But yeah, I went and visited our casks. They're still there. They're quite happily nestled in amongst all the other Shelter Point casks. I've been told now they've been set aside in a special spot where all the cask purchases, whiskey or casks, have gone. That way they don't accidentally get used, because that could very easily happen. If someone's not paying attention and they sample a cask and are like, oh, this one's ready, this one's great, let's use this one, and then later on down the road they would discover that it was one of our casks. So now I'm told that they actually have been separated, and so that's not going to happen. And yeah, so it was really special to be able to go see our casks, and I will hopefully be doing an update in the new year to sort of keep all the cask shareholders in the loop, and so that they know that we didn't just take their money, and there is actually casks there waiting for them in the future, which is pretty exciting. The second most memorable whiskey moment in 2021. So I run the Blue Collar and Scholar Whiskey Club tastings. Again, as mentioned earlier, my friend Leon Webb, he has a whiskey club as well called Copperhouse Whiskey Club. And we did a premium tasting with him not long ago, and he pulled out one of his private collection whiskeys for this tasting. And it was an SMWS 3.243. For those of you who don't know SMWS code, that is a Bowmore whiskey. So it was a SMWS expression that they released at a festival, which is a whiskey festival that happens on Isla every year. And it was the first SMWS expression released at a festival. And it's a Bowmore 17-year-old. And it truly was a once in a lifetime opportunity to try this whiskey. And thinking back on it now, it was so amazing. And I still can't believe that Leon opened it and shared it with us. I'm truly honored, and I know it seems a lot of you guys think it's kind of funny that I get so sort of whatever about stuff like this, but that is that's once it's gone. Like he had that bottle for a long time, and whiskey's for sharing, so he opened it. That's one of Leon's sayings is open your bottles, and he lived up to that. And when he opened that and shared that with us, and it was so special, and just it was one of those moments to remember, and it was fantastic whiskey. And it really almost kind of changed my mind about Bowmore a little bit, because I've always been a little put off by Bowmore. I think I could always it's one of those frustrating distilleries for me, because like when I drink their whiskey, I get it. I know it's one of the oldest distilleries. I feel it. I taste it in the dram, in the spirit. I know the quality is there, but it just doesn't. A lot of them just don't do it for me, and a lot of them are watered down to 40% or close to 40%, and so when I was able to try this cask strength single cask Bowmore 17, it just blew my mind. And you can bet I'm going to be on the lookout for special bottlings of Bowmore from now on. It's one of those ones that's on my radar now. Anyway, so the last whiskey memory of 2021 for me, it's because we're getting on to almost a half-hour video here. Make it short and sweet. So I'm also organizer of the Campbell River Highland Gathering heavy events. So I put on the games where we throw around weights and stones and hammers and cabers. Anyway, this year was finally the year we could get back to doing somewhat of a games post-COVID. So we organized the games. We had a great turnout. It was a fantastic day. There was ominous clouds circling us all day, threatening rain, but it held out to almost the very end. We got right to we were about to start the caber toss, and a couple cracks of thunder and lightning, and we were absolutely not just rained out, but like tsunami'd out. We got so much rain in such a short period of time that our throwing field turned into a river. So all we could do was run for cover, try and put everything away that needed to get put under cover, and then we kind of stood around under the tents thinking that maybe it would pass and we could get on with the caber for a short period of time, but we quickly realized that this was not going to pass right away. And so what do Scott people do when they can't throw sticks? They drink whiskey. So out came the bottles. We started having drams and beers, and I had literally just picked up the new release of the Shelter Point 10-year-old cask strength whiskey. And this is a really special whiskey for them because they're finally at that point in the distillery's journey where they can start putting age statements on their whiskeys confidently. And this whiskey was amazing. And I opened it up on in that monsoon torrential rainstorm we had, and it was so good, and it just paired so well with the Scottish weather that we had in the Highland Games, and it went down so smooth. That bottle just disappeared so fast. I'm looking forward to everything that they have to release in the future. We just found out the other day the distillery is finally open again, which is super exciting. They've been closed for like 8 months for various reasons, and so yeah, I'm super excited that they're back in business, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us for 2022. So yeah, those were my memorable moments, and for those of you that were there, you'll understand why they were so memorable. Yeah, that's it. It's time to celebrate a new year, and I look forward to doing tastings with the club in 2022. Things are changing a little bit in my life as we speak, so I don't know how many tastings I'll be able to do, but I definitely do want to do a few with you guys. And again, thank you all for your support and participating in the tastings. And hope you all have a safe and happy new year. Cheers.